Joe Holtzman is the first one on today. Alan Long has joined us. Ed Worley, welcome to all of you. David James is nearly the first, as he asks with a question mark from across the bay. Welcome to all of you and many more. Delighted to have Andrew Pindar with us today, live from Scarborough, from the UK. Kent Gardam, hello, Kent. Fritz Mueller, greetings from windy Miami, the crypto city. Gordon Smith in Denmark. Wet Hog is in Annapolis on a beautiful spring day, one of the spiritual hearts of sailing in this country. It's soggy but warm up in Seattle, Stingray says. Ted Ryman down in Cape Town. Rob Sternstein, I like to say Sternstein, in Boston. Alistair Murray's on. We have a nice letter from Alistair. We're going to go to that letter. And let's get this one. Show number 516 off the dock.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Studio B at the Beach Street Yacht Club here in, it's a nice day here in San Francisco, Julia.
It is.
And we're going to have some much needed rain this weekend, but everybody talks about the weather and does nothing about it.
Yeah, quarter inch.
But it's opening day on the bay here on the San Francisco Bay. All the yacht clubs get together and have a parade. And it's the official opening of the yachting season here.
Which has been open all year, but never mind.
Exactly right. Monica Diaz checking in from Spain. Commodore Steve Atkins in Connecticut. Roger Lockhart is watching the start of the Newport Ensenada race, which is starting just about now. In fact, it's probably been underway for an hour or so. Down off of Newport Beach. Christopher Gillingham in Leamington. Alan Long. Dan Jaspers, who's not coming on Tuesday, by the way. He's coming on next Friday. We postponed, put the AP flag up on that one. Greg Phillips on the Gold Coast down in Oz. We mentioned Monica Diaz in Spain. Paul Homchick. Hi, Paul. Thomas Brennan in New Orleans. There's not a new name, but nice to see you back, Thomas. Phil Walker is checking in from the Laser Masters in Lugano, Lago di Lugano, where my daughter Meg went to college at Franklin University. Alan Long, I'll mix a dark and stormy in preparation for the winery, not the winery, but the wine cellar tour we're going to get from Andrew, who is standing politely and patiently by in Scarborough. Andrew, well, I got your mic up, Andrew, so chime in if you want. Anytime.
I'll be quiet for a while.
Steve Atkins says, I love parades. Pedro is saying G'day, I think. Pedro Farling Sailor down in Sydney. Tom Hansen in Lauderdale. Hi, Tom. Graham Sweeney, good evening. Graham's over in Scotland, up in Yell normally. Emmett's just a little late, but we have his report. Terrific report from John. Alistair Murray's up particularly early. I'm up to join you. Not bike riding is pretty sure I have COVID. Oh, dear. I know his wife has COVID. Julie, you saw that in his email. Clark Chapin from Trying to Be Spring, Michigan, where it snowed a couple days ago, big time. They had a big-time snowstorm in my home state here in the middle of April. Monica Diaz replying to Tom Hansen, any Russian boats there? We're going to get into that a little bit. I'm still not quite sure what this latest thing from World Sailing, but they've extended the ban against the Belarusians and the Russians. Hi, everybody. Welcome to show number 516 here. Tom Eamon live. And as I said, we're going to bring him straight in right away. We've got Andrew Pindar, who is a longtime FOSI and by now quite a good friend, standing by in beautiful Scarborough in Great Britain. And we'll bring him in here for what we call the pre-start, right in, because he's going to co-host the show with Julia and myself, right, Julia?
Right.
And I'm just checking all the levels. Andrew, you can hear us okay?
Yeah, and just want to confirm, I'll send my bank account details later if you want to share the fees.
Emmett's reply, they're back and forth with their normal conversation. Simon Strauss, looking debonair, Mr. P. So a friend of yours, João Alexander, is checking in from Portugal, and we've got some Portuguese, a little bit of Portuguese news today, too, in the This Day in History. Monica Diaz saying hi also to Andrew. Let's get on with it and start by wishing Her Majesty the Queen a belated happy 96th. Andrew, you're her representative in Scarborough, aren't you?
Well, yeah, the Queen has representatives in all the counties of the United Kingdom, and those representatives are called the Lord Lieutenants, and each of the Lord Lieutenants then has deputies, and I'm the Lord Lieutenant of North Yorkshire has deputies, and I'm one of those deputies. So, although it's generally for work that I would do in the area around where I live, it is a deputy Lord Lieutenant of the county of North Yorkshire.
So what do you get called upon to do? Do you bless babies and perform weddings? Or, I mean, seriously, what do you do? I know you don't do that kind of stuff.
You represent Her Majesty at civic functions. If something example would be Armed Forces Day or Remembrance Sunday, something that the monarch would be invited to by every town and borough in the country, and clearly she can only be in one place at one time. Those of us who are within the lieutenancies, we then represent the Queen at that function. And we do other work as well, so we're involved in assessments of charities for the Queen's Awards for charitable work. We're involved in the honours system in giving feedback about whether people might be deserving of an honour, which also would include recommending people who would potentially be invited to a garden party at Buckingham Palace, for instance. So a variety of different work across the county. You can do pretty much as much work as you like or as little as you like. And they do say sometimes that the most arduous task of a deputy lieutenant is to go to the funerals of other deputy lieutenants.
Mark Husted wants to know if you collect taxes. Mark over in Göteborg, Gothenburg, Sweden. Nice work.
I do pay them.
You pay them, but don't collect them. Alan Long is saying, nice work if you can get it. Commodore Charlie Hart here saying, sail on, cheers. Welcome, Charlie. I need to talk to you, Charlie, about the Stag Cruise, if and when you've got a moment. Let's ask you, Andrew, about your, people don't realize, at least I didn't realize, how far north you are, north of London. And when you fly back into London, as you did, I guess, earlier this week, and we were talking to tee this up, you have to train where? To York? In the early...
Scarborough is my hometown, and we are 240 miles north of London. So that's a increasingly expensive and tedious drive. It's a sort of 4.5-hour drive, especially if you're going to try and get into central London, because it's not so bad the bit from North Yorkshire down to the home counties, but when you get into London, it takes almost as long to get from the ring road of London, really, the M25, right into the centre. So the train's the way to do it, and there's a decent rail system in the UK. It's sub 2 hours from London King's Cross Station to York, and then it's a 50-minute journey on the train from York across to the coast where I live in Scarborough.
Now, speaking of Scarborough, it's not the only Scarborough in the world. There are 13 places in the world named Scarborough. Tell us about these others.
Yeah, well, we've begat a lot of other Scarboroughs. And part of it, I think, is because Captain Cook sailed from Whitby, which is all of 15 miles outside my back door at the coast. And, of course, James Cook went to circumnavigate the world and to discover all sorts of places. And that, of course, went through that, I guess, the colonization when the empire was being created. So you'll find Scarboroughs in many places. I think there are 3 Scarboroughs in the United States alone. There are 2 in Australia. There's one in near Cape Town in South Africa. There's Scarborough, Tobago. There's even a Scarborough on Barbados. So there's a Scarborough in Canada. They have the bluffs of Scarborough, Ontario. So Scarborough has a lot of sons and daughters around the world sharing the same name.
Yeah, I played hockey in Scarborough. We used to have a home and home between our hometown of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Scarborough, Ontario, a great hockey suburb of Toronto. Stingray wants to know, are we going to Scarborough Fair? Where's Scarborough Fair?
Well, Scarborough Fair is a real thing. There is still a Scarborough Fair, but it was a traditional equivalent of a horse fair, and where they would have the dancing bears, and there would be people trading things. There was a Scarborough Fair, and the song that he was just singing there, or you were singing on his behalf, was the Simon and Garfunkel song, which so many people know, certainly of my generation, was a folk song which they brought forward to be a modern song of Simon and Garfunkel fame. So, yeah, there's still a Scarborough Fair, and proud of it.
Yeah, even our generation,
Of course.
knows that song. So not just you young folks, Andrew, and people like Stingray, who's even younger yet. Gordon Smith wanting to know, did Cook sail overland to Scarborough, Ontario? He did what? 3 circumnavigations, right? At least 2. And he did spend some time. He discovered Newfoundland, I think, or at least spent some time there. Okay, enough about all that. Luca Craig is saying, love Whitby and Robin Hood's Bay just down the road from Andrew. Is that a nice spot, Andrew?
Robin Hood's Bay is, I didn't quite see the note there, but Robin Hood's Bay is between us and Whitby. It's a beautiful little seaside village, only 8 miles, 9 miles to the north of here. So it's stunning, and it was famous. I think it was a Rahela. I might have got that wrong. There was a famous shipwreck where in the winter of even like 150 years ago or whatever, the sea was too rough to get to the rescue of a ship that had gone onto the rocks at Robin Hood's Bay. And what they did was to then manhandle and pull with horses the rowing lifeboat from Whitby over the hill, over the moors, and then launched it in Robin Hood's Bay to save lives. It was a very famous lifeboat rescue.
Now, Ryman is saying, and this was not on that list that I showed a minute ago. It's not on this list, I don't think. It's Ted Ryman down in Cape Town is saying Scarborough, just south of Cape Town, is a stunning little village with lovely beaches and surfing. So there's yet another.
No, I mentioned that one, Tom. It's I've been there when we've been with the Volvo Ocean Race and the Global Challenge to Cape Town. When you go for one of those great tours down to the Cape and things, one of the routes is to go down to Scarborough Beach, and it is a really, really nice beach.
Do they have good wine there? I know they do in Stellenbosch.
You can go to Stellenbosch, put it in the back of your car, and go down to Scarborough Beach.
Now, Andrew, what is this thing that you're going to talk? Is it next Monday that you're the guest or the keynote speaker, the featured speaker at this event?
Yeah, I've been invited to Oban in Scotland, not quite as far as going up to see Graham Sweeney. Though I did send him some good weather today. He asked for some. He sent me a message. There's a development on the west coast of Scotland about getting people sailing and giving people the opportunity to go and participate in the next Clipper around the world race. So it's an area where it feels as though a number of people there feel as though it's been a bit left behind by some of the recent events in politics in Europe, and they want to then reinforce the opportunities that young people or people of any age can have by being introduced to sailing, and to then go and apply to get one of the 15 places, I think it is, available in the next edition of the Clipper Around the World race. So they've asked me to go up there on Monday, which I'm going to do from Scarborough to Oban by train, which is going to take me 9 hours. But I'm trying to be as good a citizen as I can be, rather than drive my car all that way. I'm going to go up on the train, and then I'm the guest gig. I'm singing for my supper, and introducing this event to the audience there as they promote it.
That'll be what?
That will be fantastic. We'll look forward to a report. Graham Sweeney saying that the song Scarborough Fair is a song of impossibilities, where 2 lovers asking of each other impossible tasks, with one of the lovers possibly already dead. Sweeney also saying, thanks, Andrew. We got a sunset. Monica Diaz giving you a Bravo Zulu for that occasion. Now we've got I don't know where that beat.
If you can silence me for a second, it's just an important call from my wife. So
oh, dear. Okay. So while he's taking the phone call with his wife, I mean, you got to do these things, right, Julie? These are important things.
Absolutely.
We finally get Julia's phone and her iPhone and her watch silenced, and then our guest is getting phone calls. At least it's from his wife. I'm really sorry to hear that. Speaking of wives, I know that Alistair Murray, his wife, has had COVID, and so they are both under quarantine.
Yes.
And now he thinks he's got it. He must be having some symptoms. So, Alistair, sorry to hear that. I'm going to skip this winery tour slide because that's really not related to Andrew Pindar. It's his name. We've talked about this before. Yeah, the wife, Clark Chapin, says she who must be obeyed. And
Right.
Pindar Vineyards is actually, I think, in Long Island. There, Andrew's back. Right, this is not a relative of yours, just a distant relative.
I think purely by accident. I think they name the Pindar Winery in Long Island after the Greek god or the Greek poet. So that's where it came from. I have been to it. I must admit, I did somewhat surprise them by going in there and asking if there was a Mr. Pindar. And I'm drinking water, you'll be pleased to know.
Oh, yes.
From the Pindar, it's a glass from the Pindar Vineyard. But it's a great little winery on Long Island, and so it's a source of quite a bit of fun for me to pretend that I've got a vineyard of my own.
So before we get into your tour, let's do the news, but give us a little tease. Tell us what new things you've added since our last tour, which Clark Chapin will remind us must have been 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I decided that life's too short, and as the great and late Bob Fisher said, life's too short to drink poor wine.
Yes.
I decided the same applies to champagne. So on my last two visits to France, driving through the Champagne region, I've stopped by and bought a little bit of different champagne. So I think an ambition and is to try and consume or taste as many different champagnes before I leave this mortal coil.
Okay, well, let me go back to some thank yous and the rest of the pre-show. We want to thank Daniel Forster. Everybody enjoyed that show enormously, and I just pulled out 4 or 5 of what I think were the more popular slides of the 200 that we showed on Tuesday's show. The DC with the Cup coming back from Perth, from Australia in 1987, February of 87. I don't know why this slide was so popular, but I know Ted Ryman liked it, and some of you other croutons liked it. I was looking at isn't that a World Match Racing Tour hat? I don't know what it was. That's what I was looking at, Julia.
Yes, it was.
What were you looking at?
I was looking at you.
You're looking at me across the studio. Did you like that picture, Andrew?
I couldn't possibly comment.
Your wife, somebody says your wife's down in the wine cellar. That was a nice photo. And then this one of Daltz kissing the cup. I don't know what that finger is at the bottom. I just noticed that finger when I was going through to grab some of these slides.
Somebody hanging on to the gunnels of the boat.
That's what it looks like, or to the stage or something, or we're number one. I don't know. There's Alan Long says, oh, there's a hat in that photo. Yeah, there's 2 hats, Alan. So I don't know. That was another one of Daniel's photos. And of course, that was part 2 of that show. That aired Tuesday. It was one of our, I don't know if it was our longest, Alistair Murray, but it was among our longest shows. 3.5 hours, Julia.
Yep.
A terrific show and a great series of slides, all on the America's Cup. This was Danielle talking just about the America's Cup. His first part 1 of that slideshow, which did the Sydney Hobart, which did Newport Bermuda, Fastnet race, and Olympics, and so on.
Yeah.
Aired sometime back in, I think, November, maybe late October, Clark Chapin told us. But
Yeah.
Thanks again, Daniel Forster. It was a terrific show. He is such a great sport, and we'll get him on again. I hope he's going. He wasn't able to do the Cup in New Zealand, of course, because, as you all know,
COVID.
the
They
COVID
couldn't
and
get
not
in.
having enough COVID beds and getting through the per lottery to get into
It is a long show to look at the whole thing at once, but absolutely go back to it and watch it, and especially this group will know somebody in there, and there's comments all along the way, and I think I know a lot about that. Of course I don't.
Well, speaking of which, we got a very nice letter, an email from, you know who that is? He's watching. That's our FOSI, yeah, FOSI Alistair Murray,
Yeah.
AM down in Oz, where it's very early. It's, what time is it down there? 5, 6 in the morning, I think, where he is in Melbourne. He said, "Good day, Tom and Julia. I don't attend as many SI episodes as I would like, as I am either bike riding in the morning or just too damn busy. Must rearrange my priorities. Today," meaning Tuesday, "was an exception for 2 reasons. Firstly, I didn't want to miss the second chapter with Daniel Forster, even in replay after being spellbound by the first." He wrote a nice note after the first one, too.
Yeah.
And secondly, my wife is really quite ill with COVID. So sorry, Alistair, to hear that again. And I am in 7 days of lockdown as a close contact. Well, I am so glad I made the commitment to watch, and I think was the longest episode ever, as I was spellbound again and didn't miss a minute of it. 3.5 hours flew by.
Yeah. It was incredible. That's true.
It was funny. He said some more. He said, "I'm a self-confessed America's Cup junkie, and both Daniel's and your stories being brought to us through Daniel's extraordinary photographs were a treat indeed. They brought back so many memories of action, scandal, cliff-hanging results, backs to the wall struggles, intrigue, subterfuge, history, and most importantly, the personalities and humor that have led to what the Cup represents to followers of it like me." And of course, that's the case. And I just, this was such an extraordinary email. I want to quote some more of it. "Danielle is amazing. I cannot believe how many extraordinary images he has created over such a long time, 40 years, and the lengths he has gone to take them. So many stand out, but in particular, I was blown away by the shot he took of the female sailor aloft in an AC rig." That was Bill Cook's women's team, 95.
Yeah.
Taken by him standing on a spreader above her. But there were so many more, too. It's a great pity Daniel couldn't be in Auckland for the latest match, as there would have been more great images from there, too. Personally, I've attended the AC matches in Newport, San Diego, San Francisco, Auckland, Valencia, and Fremantle. My dream, I think a lot of people's dream, frankly, even non-Aussies, my dream would be to attend a defense again in Australia in my lifetime, but surely that is a pipe dream. Well, I hope not. Do you think that's a pipe dream, Andrew, that it'll ever go back to Oz?
Well, in fact, it's quite a coincidence, isn't it? That I'm wearing, where's the badge?
Yeah.
Team Australia on my shirt tonight. And of course, the Oakley family very nearly funded a challenge. And we were very lucky to have on our Extreme Sailing Series team for a season or two, a whole bunch of super talented young Aussies sail for us. And it was, so many people in Australia got very excited about the potential of an Australian challenge. And if you look at Sail GP and you look at where those with dual nationality passports who can go and sail, there's a very strong talent pool in Australia. So if somebody has the money, it would be fantastic if one of these days they decided to spend it on an America's Cup challenge. And if they were to challenge, you've got to think they would likely do very well.
Well, for sure, especially if the Aussie sailors returned to the fold, so to speak, to the mother country, to Mother Oz. There was a little more. There was one more paragraph, and it was and this is why he likes the Cup. He likes the personalities, and of course, Alistair and I met some 20 plus years ago in Lisbon at this International Sailing Summit, which Alistair started, and it's kind of morphed into now the Sailing Forum. And he found this old photo of us, which I wasn't going to show, but I guess I have to. It's so awful, at least of me. It's great of Alistair. It occurred to me that I got to meet so many America's Cup personalities and heroes through the ISS who directly participated, including Sir James Hardy, Buddy Melgus, Gary Jobson, Slingsby, Simmer, Murray, Trublay, Brown, Farr, Holland, Cudmore, Griffin, Fisher, and of course, a few others, just to mention the ones that come to mind immediately. Keep up the great work, and I'll check in more regularly. Thanks very much, Alistair Murray. We appreciate that sentiment very much indeed. And then I did bring that photo from Lisbon that you sent me, Alistair. Bloody hell. Is that awful or what?
The kid on the left. Yeah.
From 20 some odd years ago, the International Sailing Summit, Lisbon, I think it was 2000. But this was a great service to the sport that Alistair has done, and people like Pindar and many, many others we love to have on this show, because you guys are the spark plugs of the sport, and we celebrate you. We celebrate all of you. Thank you very much for what you're doing, Alistair, what you're doing, Andrew. Somebody said, Andrew, speaking of things that you're doing, you're sponsoring a lot of different things. Husted is saying, I saw today that Pindo is involved with the Class 40 race around, which starts in September 2023 in La Rochelle. Is that true? Are you sponsoring the race or a boat?
No, we're supporting it with the logistics. I think you're probably aware we're involved in most of the major sailing events around the world to do the logistics through GAC Pindar. And Sam Holliday, who created the race around, asked us or gave us the opportunity to be involved with that race from a logistic point of view, and that's what we're doing. So we're very excited. He's put a lot of time and effort, and especially having to build a race on zero revenue going through COVID. It's been a lot to take on, but he's doing a great job, and we appreciate the opportunity to support them.
We're watching the Congressional Cup. I've got a little bit in here from yesterday, but the racing started, or they were scheduled to start a couple hours ago. And Gordon Smith reporting that Williams and Berenson, who are in one semifinal, are 1-1 so far. Gordon Smith telling us that Canfield is up 1-0 in the other semifinal. And we'll probably won't get to that live, but we will cover some of that, at least in retrospect, from what happened up through last night. Please remind us, Stingray is saying, what the GAC stands for.
GAC, well, originally it was Gulf Agency Company, and we created a partnership. I think we did that maybe 2010 was when we met GAC in Bahrain, of all places, in the Middle East, when we were running a sailing program there, and persuaded them to get involved in sponsoring Ian Williams as one of the people in the World Match Racing Tour. And also in the Extreme Sailing Series. So GAC, Gulf Agency Company, and then my last name tagged on to the back of it in a joint venture. But GAC don't refer to themselves as the Gulf Agency Company any longer. They say GAC or GAC. I don't like the way it sounds as GAC.
GAC sounds American. GAC.
So,
Gulf, does that mean the Gulf of the Middle East there, the Persian Gulf?
Yeah. It was a company. It's a Swedish-owned company, Swedish foundation that now owns it. But it was a Swedish guy in about 1956 who created GAC. He was a travel agent in Sweden. He moved to the Middle East, initially to Kuwait, and tried to open up a travel agency. Didn't really work, so he opened up a ships agency. And today, GAC are one of the world's leading ships agents. And in parallel with their ships agency, they have a big freight forwarding and logistics business. And we work with both sides of GAC, both on the logistics side and on the ships agency side.
No wonder the logo is blue and yellow.
Absolutely.
This is sweet. Okay, let's move forward then into what is today, Julia? Do you know what today is?
Earth Day.
It is Earth Day, and we have a little bit of a video on behalf of UNESCO or the United Nations.
And I am president of EarthDay.org. I'm here today to talk about the theme of Earth Day 2022, which is Invest in Our Planet. Our goal is to engage more than 1 billion people, governments, and institutions, along with businesses. And by using Earth Day as a platform, we aim to push aside the barriers that have been erected by the fossil fuel industry and economy and redirect all of our attention to creating a 21st century economy that brings back the healing and health of our planet, protects all of our species, including our own, and provides opportunities for everyone on the planet. People, governments, and businesses all fear change. But the status quo, the way we live today, is changing before our eyes. In building our future, individuals, businesses, entrepreneurs, inventors, and governments each have a unique role. We need to act individually and together.
Okay, it is Earth Day, earthday.org. And one of the things that is going on is this initiative by some of the sports, the Olympic sports. And I'm going to play the World Sailing Trust's video. It's a bit longish, it's 4 minutes, but have a look. And then, Andrew, we want to discuss this coming out of this video. Roll tape.
Carbon fibre usage within sport is massive. When you compare it to other industries, it's actually the third largest user currently, and it's projected to be the second largest user fairly soon. And within sports such as sailing, tennis, cycling and skiing, we see that there's a range of products that use carbon fibre, anything from large sailing yachts to tennis rackets and also smaller components.
It's used mainly for its strength and its lightness. So when any of those properties are taken away, so if there's any slight deviation in its construction, then literally it's thrown away. And 95% of carbon fibre ends up in landfill.
So partnership is really important to the success of this project. So we've partnered with the various international federations such as the International Biathlon Union, the UCI, ITF and World Sailing. So we can look at all the different usages of carbon fibre within sports equipment. We've then also reached out to the equipment manufacturers in each of those sports, so all form an alliance to work together to tackle this issue.
The project is to look at the circularity of carbon fibre in the sports industry. So taking a broken component, realigning those fibres and producing a line tape that can be used back into that same component.
So imagine a bike frame or a tennis racket, when it breaks, you actually return it and get a discount on your new racket, which is made with reclaimed carbon fiber. We can use carbon fiber 1 time, 2 times, 3 times and over again, using that high value, high strength carbon fiber and give it multiple lives.
This project allows us to utilize the R&D pilot plant we have here, which is a research machine owned by the University of Bristol and based here at the National Composite Centre.
Carbon fiber recycling really is a 2-step process. Step 1 is getting the fibers out of a broken component, and then 2 is realigning those fibers with our process. The way we do that is first chop the carbon fiber component in small bits. We then send that to a reclaimer where we get dry carbon fibers back, but it is a very fluffy material. And our process is a bit as a high-tech paper making process. We mix the carbon fibers in water and then we put that in our machine where we spray the carbon fiber mixture between parallel plates, and that aligns them in those gaps, ultimately creating a continuous tape of aligned short fibers. On the prototype behind me, we align fibers manually, so we manually mix all the fibers in water. But on our next machine, we're automating that, aligning more fibers every hour of the day we can. So we try and align around 80 billion fibers each day. And if you put those in one line, you could go around the world 3 times.
I think today in modern society, we all understand about the carbon emissions and actually the embodied carbon footprint of a product. So if we can use something that has a much lower carbon footprint with the same properties in terms of performance, then I think consumers are going to start to purchase those products as a priority. The opportunity within sport is absolutely huge, but the opportunity in other industries is perhaps even greater. Initial results are looking really promising, and we're really excited to join with other sports federations and wider carbon fibre industries on the next stage of this process.
Okay, who wants to start? Andrew, you must be familiar with this project.
I'm trying to think of that. Well, Dan Redding, of course, I think has moved on to the sports agency like Formula now. He was at World Sailing and with the World Sailing Trust for some time, and very effectively so. Earned himself a strong reputation. I'm trying to think whether the specific one is the one that Mark Turner is also involved in. I saw a post on LinkedIn of Mark's the other day, and Mark certainly is in that space. I mean, he was leading in carbon technology and thinking about the reuse of it a long time ago. And it's certainly something that was in his mind during his period at the Volvo Ocean Race. So I'm trying to think if it's the same one or not, Tom, but Clearly, I mean, I'm a great contributor to the carbon waste dump because I break squash rackets on a all too regular basis. I think I could have built an open 60 with the number of squash rackets that I've broken. It certainly has to be the way to go, doesn't it? You know, we can't build expensive things pretending that we're involved in an environmentally friendly sport if we then just go and put them into the waste dump. So we've got to look at ways of being able to manufacture sporting equipment that isn't going to cost the earth, and at the moment we're probably doing that way too much.
Well, and that's the good question. I don't know. This is obviously a recycling project for carbon and carbon sports equipment, but probably beyond that. Is there other recycling going on with carbon materials? And we produce these big, huge carbon boats and rigs and everything else. How we try to present our sport as being carbon not neutral, but as being responsible and sustainable. But we probably, between the sails and the boats and the rigs, and then flying boats around and the chase boats and everything else, we're probably not all that green.
Yeah, we've got to be very careful of the claims we make, and I think we've got to be able to look ourselves in the mirror when we're doing that. So it's easy for people to get a bit carried away, and we see that in a few areas of the sport. But there is work being done, and I think that, and I can't speak with authority. I'm feeling that I should be able to speak with greater authority on this subject, and by next time I come on, I will have read up better. But we have to look at how we're going to reduce the impact. We still need to have sport because that's part of what business is about. But we need to do so in a way that isn't so damaging. So I'm delighted to hear about that project through the World Sailing Trust. The World Sailing Trust is doing some really good work on the people and planet side. It's dividing out the area about human interaction with sport and diversity and inclusion and all of that stuff. At the same time as on the planet side, making sure that we're involved in a sport that is not one that is giving excessive damage to the earth and to the environment we live in. I saw a post today from Hannah Mills, who of course is involved with Ben at
CLGP, yeah.
And she's certainly leading on that sort of charge with Ben's team, for one better description. So there are lots of people putting time and effort now into this, and putting serious intent behind it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I want to follow this. I know that one of the big problems, we produce all these windmills and wind turbines and for generating electricity, and then those things break. They don't have a very long life, apparently, at least not
10 or 15 years.
Is that it?
Yeah.
And then what do they do with them?
They stockpile them in big collections, and they do not have a way to dispose of them.
It's not quite like nuclear energy, but it is very difficult to dispose. So maybe
and they take a lot of energy to make, and a lot of time, and a lot of money, and there's no way that's efficient.
You're not enthused about windmills.
Oh, I was till I learned about them.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. Not many comments. Go ahead, Andrew, please.
I'm just thinking, though, maybe that's what the Arizona desert was designed for, because as we know, if you go down to the Pima Air Base or something outside of Tucson, you can go for mile after mile after mile of redundant aircraft and stuff. So, it's not just about windmills where we need to look at ourselves as society. It's across the piece. And I think that this type of project will challenge, and invention will mean that the blades that are made, which are mainly carbon, that same, if it works for the carbon on a boat and the carbon in a squash racket, it should then be able to work for the carbon that's going to be in the blade of a wind turbine. So I think that necessity being the mother of invention, wouldn't it be brilliant if this type of approach that's in that little video does work in a mass way, and that when we do get to the end of life of those windmill blades, that they are able to be recycled and repurposed.
Yes.
Emmett is saying the Dutch use the foils to make bike racks, so none of them go to waste. And Graham Sweeney saying they bury the turbines and the blades. Yeah, I know that's what they're doing down, Julie, in SoCal, down in Palm Springs in the desert with those when they start to get old. Okay, there's not many comments. It's an interesting topic, and I think we caught a few people, some of our FOSI, by surprise about that. I had not seen, it was the first time I had seen that video, and I just saw it this morning on Earth Day, and of course, the 22nd of April is Earth Day. It's been going on since, I think, since the 70s, right? I remember it in high school. Or
the guy who
when
started
did it start?
was the Stanford guy who.
Oh, Stanford guy started everything, Julia.
No, but Earth Day they did start.
They did?
Yeah, not, of course I'm forgetting his name, but
I don't know. Just one last comment on. I mean, I make fun of Stanford, but it's a fabulous place. I'm just jealous I didn't go. I got in, but I didn't go. I was too poor. So I went to the local, Julie Ahrens loves it when I talk about the state schools, Ohio State, Michigan, University of Michigan.
yes.
I mean, the thing, Andrew, that bothers me and Julia about, you got to swing back on you. You're out of, there you go. And when we do the tech check, I say, Andrew, now watch yourself. When we get this 3-shot, these are narrow, and you can't lean too far left or right. And Julia, you got to swing your. There you go. Here, port tack or starboard tack. No, the thing that I worry about, and the good thing, at least Clark Chapin, who's on here, and Ken Saban and others from the Midwest, the Great Lakes, Andrew, in our in our neck of the woods where I grew up, were just in horrible condition. Not only the Houston Shipping Canal or Channel catch on fire back in the early 70s, but Cleveland, big city on the South Shore of Lake Erie, caught on fire. I was there when it happened, and the creosote and everything. And it sounds probably worse than it was, but there was oil and lots of stuff, and Lake Erie was dying. Lake Michigan had all sorts of terror. All the Great Lakes did, and of course those Great Lakes are owned by Canada and the U.S. And Nixon, of all people, Republican conservatives, started what we call now the EPA here in this country, the Environmental Protection Agency, and they've done the super cleaning up of some of these terrible places, toxic dumps. And the Great Lakes, notably, are much cleaner thanks to cooperative efforts between Ontario and Michigan.
San Francisco Bay is too.
Is San Francisco Bay better now?
Yes.
I mean, I know it's better now, but was it awful in the 70s? So, Alan Long is saying, it caught on fire a few times, and it's the Cuyahoga River, right, that caught fire, I think, more than once, which is the river that feeds into Lake Erie there at Cleveland. So, I guess I'm more worried about microplastics and the stuff we can't even see, taste. And I'm starting to see more and more reports about you shouldn't even be microwaving in plastic. You should really be using glass. You shouldn't be drinking your cocktails as we do, Julie, here at the Beach Street Yacht Club, of our set of plastic glasses. Well, what do you think, Andrew? Do we really have to have a rethink of microplastics? And I mean, we know the gyres in the middle of the oceans and some of the great work that the 11th Hour Racing is doing. But
Jo Royal, you've heard of her before.
Yes.
She had an organization called Common Seas, and she had a big feature in the Guardian newspaper in the UK, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now, which then went viral around the world, and it was about plastics in being found within the human, so microplastics getting into the body. That was talked about by Paolo Mipuri during the Volvo Ocean Race, the last Volvo Ocean Race as well, during the Ocean Summits. So this is increasingly evidenced by finding plastics in human beings. And if it's happening into human beings, presumably it's happening to animals as well, and we're going to eat animals. So, it's time we started paying real attention.
Yeah, I agree. Fog Machine is saying SF Bay is clean enough that we now see whales occasionally. This is the top of the food chain. It's taken 50 years, 2 generations since federal legislation was passed. And I guess it's because the krill or whatever the fish are that come in here that then the whales and the dolphins chase to eat or whatever. I guess that's what's bringing them back into the bay. We are seeing a fair few. Alan Long, they're back and forth here. And now today you can fish, kayak, and family cruise on the Cuyahoga River in Ohio. Bravo, Andrew, Gordon Smith is saying. And the zebra mussels now is the big problem. This is James Bland, J. Frederick Bland, saying the Cuyahoga River caught fire. Yeah, but zebra mussels, as you in the Commonwealth would say, zebra mussels are the biggest problem. A European import from tanker bilges. And those zebra mussels come in, you introduce a new animal into the ecosystem.
Oh, yeah, no.
And then they upset the whole balance and they start eating everything else, or they get eaten and everything. You know what our biggest problem in Michigan is, Andrew?
Don't tempt me.
In Michigan, not here at the Beach Street. It's the deer, where the deer and the antelope play. The deer are running rampant, and they are now they have been for years, extending the hunting season so that people go out and literally cull the herd because they're running through the streets of towns and cities, running through plate glass windows. And anyway, we got all sorts of problems. But if that was the biggest problem we had, that'd probably be lucky. Let's go back to our sport, shall we? Last word to you, Andrew, on this whole Earth Day.
I'm glad that there is one, and I'm glad that people are really starting to pay attention. We need to pay more, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Stingray wanting to know, indeed, Andrew, I think we all agree with that. Stingray wanting to know, before we go down into the wine cellar, the Scarborough cellar, yay! What is the ship model behind Andrew?
This one?
I guess. Maybe both of them.
Well, that's Endeavour 1934.
Endeavour, 34 America's Cup.
Yeah.
Almost won. Probably the closest to winning, other than, 83, when obviously the Aussies did win.
And then down there is an Arab dhow given to me by a government minister in Bahrain when we were doing our sailing program in Bahrain. And then behind me, that's Antigua Race Week. We had two boats one time over in Antigua Race Week. The Inamoka 60 in the lead, and one of our two Volvo 60s behind. And there are all sorts of people on board those boats that I could point out, but yacht designers, famous sailors, even my business partner, Nick Crabtree. So it's great. We confused the race organisers. They didn't really like having two boats that look very, very similar, because I think we caused a great confusion as to who was actually out there, because we were in different divisions. But anyway, there you go. Great fun.
Do us a favor. Clark Chapin is asking, question mark. He said Endeavour had a quadrilateral jib, question mark, in surprise. Point out, if you would, on that model, what the quadrilateral jib is, and then we'll talk about the racing rules.
I wouldn't bloody know.
Oh, come on. It's that jib that's got two clews. It's got the upper clue, and the lower clue. That's a quadrilateral jib, which Clark Chapin will know were outlawed in the racing rules. It was such a pain in the butt to trim and, to design and build and then to trim, that those quadrilateral jibs were outlawed shortly after the 1934 America's Cup. It may have been 10 years, but they were ultimately outlawed. And, that's why you don't see them today.
I wasn't there in those years.
I've never even heard the
Julia,
term.
were you weren't there in those years either.
I've not heard the term before.
Quadrilateral jib. Well done, Clark Chapin. If you're just joining us, we are about 48 minutes into our show with the esteemed, the celebrated Andrew Pindar, live via Skype from his hometown in North Yorkshire in the UK, in Scarborough, Great Britain. Delighted to have you on again. Yes, Ed Worley is saying yes. Endeavour introduced the idea. So we've got a bunch of smart people here on the University of Sailing Illustrated. Let's get into some more university talk with our next segment here in the B block. We are now to the starting line. That's the longest pre-start segment we've ever had.
I know.
But the starting line, we've got this report from our dear friend John Emmett, who's on here watching, talking about green, talking about bikes, and more. You're going to enjoy this one. From our master mentor, John Emmett.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. A little bit different today. I'm at Cairn Abbas, as you might be able to see in the background. Just going for a little cycle, making the most of my time off the water. And I think fitness is a very important thing. It doesn't only make the boat go faster, but it also prevents, or can at least help to prevent, injury. And I always think it's very sad the number of full-time sailors who have injuries at any one time, and for a lot of them it's career-ending. I think perhaps, and I am biased, the golden age of laser sailing, or Ilka sailing it is now, was with Robert Shite and Ben Ainsley, Michael Blackburn, Nick Bertha, all these people. And it was when sailors first went full time, and of course there was huge gains made technically in the sailing, and perhaps one of the key areas that happened was in the downwind sailing. I mean, it's just amazing, the difference there. But one of the other big differences with full-time sailing is the level of fitness, and it's probably the thing I struggle with the most now, if I'm going to be honest. I would like to think I know what to do and which direction to point the boat, but the whole body gets a bit tired. And yeah, you can see it's a lovely day, and yeah, just going cycling for fitness. I'm probably one of the slowest people downhill because I always worry about falling off. We went round Palma, and unfortunately there's a few flowers in places which obviously accidents have occurred. So I see it very much as a fitness thing rather than you know, trying to get the best time trial, which is probably why you won't find me on Strava if anyone's looking. But I do wear a heart rate monitor to make sure I'm not a lazy John. And this is my my sort of get the fitness when I can't be on the water myself. In fact, when I'm traveling, often it's my main means of transport, because working for small teams you don't necessarily have a car. So yeah, I'm often cycling to and from venues with my video on the back. This weekend I'll be working with the Castle Cove Cadets, and actually I may well be able to get some video depending how windy it is. That's my busman's holiday. Always feel like a great coach working with young sailors at the beginning of their sailing career, because they improve so much. In one weekend you can help them not swim downwind, whereas you can spend 3 months with a full-time sailor trying to get two boat lengths quicker downwind. So that's what I'm going to be doing. But I think that habit forming is especially important for the youth sailors. So you're trying to hike or trapeze in a really good way. So it infuriates me when people say they want to go and do 4 hours on the water, and because that just can create bad habits if you don't have the fitness to do it. Much better hiking really well for 30 seconds, learning those good habits, learning that's good steering, having a rest, building up to a minute, building up to 2 minutes, building up to 4 minutes, building up to a whole beat, building up to a whole race, and then finally, hopefully building up to a whole regatta. So that's how you start. You don't start by trying to do 4 hours, because at the end of the 4 hours, you're going to be sailing really badly because you're knackered. And that's what your body remembers. So it's the same with my cycling. I realised I hadn't actually touched the bike for about a year before Palma, and it definitely showed. One of the main things was my neck got tired and my bottom got sore, but yeah, I'm determined to get back on it, and especially because it will be my main means of transportation in both Holland and Germany. So better get used to it. Have a great show, and really looking forward to having a drink with Andrew.
There's so many comments from people.
I know.
And that's that figure up there on the hill behind him. Before we go to that figure, we have to go to some comments, and I'm sure John's on here, so he will be real. Julie and I, Andrew, it's everything we could do not to break, laugh out loud. I turned the mics up, and I hope we didn't guffaw through it. Make sure to have a seat on the seat post, John. Frederick James. Lovely, John. It was always a nice year. Habit forming is really important to develop any knowledge, stamina. Yeah, 10,000 repeats. Whether that's a myth or not, I'm not sure. Alistair Murray, who is a keen cyclist, mad keen cyclist. What is the name of his group, Julie? It's the Sexy, remember that, Andrew, what he's called, the Sexy something cyclist? Sexy sailing cyclist or something. I never ride less than 10,000 kilometers a year. My benchmark in 2020, I did 13,000 at the age of 64. Good on you. Okay, now Ryman is asking, is that a young couple copulating on the Kern Abbas chalk carving, John? And I don't see any, I don't think Ted did either. But we have to go to this. But
It's interesting.
That is what John sent as a photo at the end, well, he used at the end of his video. So I had to look into this. First of all, I had no idea, and you probably did, Andrew, but I had no idea where Kern, I didn't even know how to spell it. I had to go to, because it looked to me like, or sounded to me like it was Kern, and I thought it was Abbey or Abyss, A-B, A-B, what is it, YSS or whatever. Yeah. So no, it's not. It's a place in the UK. What is that, Dorset, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's, where are we? Yes, that's the Abbas.
So
that looks like, yeah, Winterbourne Abbas.
Kern Abbas, and there are these stick figures. That's not the term of art. And this is actually from the New Yorker magazine a year ago. And there's a couple, three more of these around the UK, and they're kind of, they're celebrated, especially this one. I mean, who wouldn't celebrate that one, right, Julia?
Yeah.
Huh? I want to see the look on your face.
James Frederick Brand says it's the giant with bone and a boner.
Oh, James Bland. Well, it is, but I had to look into this. According to the New Yorker, and there's a lot of ink on this, but the Kern giant, it's called, is so imposing that it is best viewed from the opposite crest of the valley or from the air. He is 180 feet tall, about as high as a 20-story apartment building. Head aloft in his right hand is held aloft in his right hand is a large knobby club. His left arm stretches across the slope, drawn in an outline formed by trenches packed with chalk. He has primitive but expressive facial features, with a line for a mouth and circles for eyes. His raised eyebrows are perhaps intended to indicate ferocity, but they might equally be taken for a look of confusion. Indeed. His torso is well defined, with lines for ribs, maybe abs, and circles for nipples. A line across his waist has been understood to represent a belt. Most well-defined of all, of course, is his penis, which is erect and measures 26 feet in length. Were the giant not protectively fenced off, a visitor could comfortably lie down within the member and take in the idyllic vista. Andrew, over to you. He takes a glass of something.
Oh.
Yeah, have you seen this thing? You're obviously aware of it. Everybody in the UK is, I'm sure, and there's apparently two more of these giant figures.
Yeah, well, it's that's why we tend to do quite well in rugby games and things.
It's representative of the clan.
Oh, well, it would be sort of it would be wrong of me to brag.
And Ken Saban says, "Oh Lord, I just noticed it. Shake your finger, Julia." Both of them. Well, there's more. You don't think I could come across something like this, being the juvenile delinquent that I am? That was from the 12th of May last year, a Rebecca Mead article in the New Yorker. And I had to look into this. The origin and age of the figure are unclear, and there is archaeological evidence that parts of it have been lost, altered, or added, I wonder, over time. The earliest written record dates to the late 17th century. Early antiquarians associated on little evidence with a Saxon deity, while other scholars sought to identify it with the Romano-British figure of Hercules, or some syncretization, word spelled
may well be, yes,
of the two. The lack of earlier descriptions, along with information given to the 18th century antiquarian John Hutchins, has led some scholars to conclude it dates from the 17th century, but recent optically stimulated luminescence, not tumescence, luminescence testing has suggested an origin between the year 700 current era, AD, and 1110 CE, possibly close to the 10th century date of the founding of nearby Kern Abbey. Now, Andrew, illuminate this for us.
Yeah, that's the origin of the Agra, because if he's kept it up for that long, he must have got something pretty special.
Certainly not Christian. Graham Sweeney, it's an advertising symbol to promote the local abbey. It's been the Long Man of Wilmington. Yeah, I've been to the Long Man of Wilmington. That's another one of these figurines. Is it related to Margaret? Common Era. What did I say? Didn't I say Common Era? CE? Common Era? Julie Aarons, thank you for that. Well, there's some more about this. Regardless of its age, the current Abbas giant has become an important part of local cultural and folklore, which often associates it with, no surprise, fertility. It is one of England's best known hill figures, and that's the word I was looking for, and is a visitor attraction in the region. I think some Chamber of Commerce or Tourist Bureau, Andrew, must have just chalked that down and started promoting it.
Chalk that down. In fact, that's that many true words spoken in jest, I think, Tom, because it's often on chalk hills that you get these. It's whether it's a man or whether it's a white horse. but there are various parts of the country where there is chalk. You'll find these sort of figures on steep hillsides.
Okay, well, I don't know what to call it. I said this day in history, let it be known, let the record show that Coach Emmett's phallic fertility figure appeared on his video, and we talked about it for some period of time on this show. Andrew, he's trying to keep a straight face, Julia.
He's very good at it. Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I couldn't resist because this has come up before and I dodged it. You know that sailmaker? That's a jib, obviously, laying on the grass someplace long ago. Do you know that sailmaker, Andrew?
No.
It's called, no joke, called Hard Sails. And it was formed in the 50s, and Hard Sails long since gone. But it was bought by a cheeky guy who promoted it with this T-shirt. I kid you not, and I proudly had one of those T-shirts. It cost me a lot of money. Clark Chapin knows. Hard Sails. Baton Rouge knows. Ha ha! I know hard sail with a hard on. Julie, you can shake your finger at me. I'm sorry I brought that up, but I knew all my friends in the Midwest at least would remember that. I still wish I had that T-shirt. I tried really hard. So maybe we have to change it and say sail fast, sail safe, sail hard. Look at Julia. I
know.
Pindar, he's just shaking his head. Okay, we'll get off that. I do want to thank John Emmett Sailing for inspiring that segment.
Enough.
Thanks, John. Okay, let's get on. Speaking of history, this day in history, there is a connection going forward here, not to sailing with a hard on, but this day in history, Julia, do you know what happened in 1500? Apparently on this day. Tom has jumped the shark, James Bland is saying. On this day is your only clue. And we do this in honor of João and any of our other Portuguese friends and any of our Brazilian friends about whom we're going to talk about in a moment, in the next segment. In 1500 on this day, Pedro Álvares Cabral was chosen by the Portuguese crown to lead a major expedition to India. A fleet of 13 ships and an estimated 1,500 men left Portugal to follow in the footsteps of Vasco da Gama's earlier expedition in search of new trade routes to India. Where did he end up? In Brazil, as you would, because you all know sailing, watching those offshore races, that's where they sail over to Brazil from Europe, and before they go down to visit Ted Ryman in Cape Town. It is still, for the winds and the currents and so on, it is still unclear today whether Cabral's journey into the West Atlantic was deliberate or not, but on the 22nd of April, 1500, land was spotted at what Cabral christened Monte Pascoal in what is now modern Brazil. The expedition went on to spend about 10 days exploring the coast and interacting with the indigenous peoples. Cabral claimed the lands for the Portuguese crown under the conditions of the Treaty of, don't ask me how to pronounce that, agreed with Spain, which granted Portugal sway over undiscovered lands along the meridian of 370 leagues.
Wow.
And now you wonder why Brazil is Portuguese?
Yes.
At least Portuguese speaking?
Yes. I also know why ships left Europe to go to South America.
Well,
Hamburg Süd.
Your late great husband, ship captain. Right, Andrew, anything to add to that little tidbit?
No, I'm still in shock from your...
So on this day in history, the Portuguese discover Brazil. Pedro Álvares Cabral is the first European to discover Brazil, landing near Monte Pascoal, and he claimed it for Portugal. This day in history, 22nd of April, 1500. And now, why did I grab that instead of something else that happened on this day in history? Because we want to do a Bravo Zulu for a very cool person whom I don't know, but you probably do, Andrew. And I know John Emmett and probably some of our other Brit and maybe European friends know. Fritz Muller, he's saying that the Treaty of Tordesillas, still, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Tordesillas, still has an impact on South America today. Interesting. John is spelt wrong. Did I spell it wrong again, John? Replying to Jay Rendell, always classy and scout. Yeah, we try to keep it classy here. This is a family show. Remember we told you on Tuesday about this terrific 1,100 sailor regatta Easter week at Lago di Garda, this Optimus annual. It's the 40th annual Garda Optimist meeting, they call it, after the Brits. That's what Brits call regattas. I couldn't use that. Here now is a video, and we want to talk about a cool outgrowth of this event. Now, the music notwithstanding, that is one fabulous video, and it makes me, and I'm sure all of us, proud to be a part of this sport, because you see those kids and the smiling faces.
Oh, yes.
Realize there's 1,100 kids there sailing and bailing, as somebody said, Ted Ryman said. And you are an aficionado. You're a strong supporter of things on Garda, aren't you, Andrew? Especially Foiling Week.
Yeah, well, I've been very lucky to have been there 3 or 4 times now, and I'm going again the end of June to Foiling Week. And what a fabulous lake that is. The conditions are just brilliant, and the scenery is stunning. There's a great welcome there. So we go to, and I tease them because I try and outcompete you for how not to say Italian words, Tom. So I try to get them to say Malchesine, because that's how it should be pronounced, isn't it? Malchesine.
No, it's Malchesine.
Well, I was with Luca Rizzotti very recently, and we were teasing you in your absence about Cagliari and
Cagliari.
Cagliari.
You'll have to get him on again, because he's going to give you a proper lesson in that. And one of the other great guys that is involved with him is a guy called Bruno Giuntoli. But I'm trying to get him to realize that it's not Giuntoli, it should be Giuntoli, because that's how a Brit would say it. But Bruno, along with Luca, created, and we're going back to this reuse of carbon. One of the great things about Foiling Week is what's called the Sumoth Challenge. Mm-hmm. I've sent you a link on your WhatsApp. Maybe you'll show it again at another show. But this is a great thing for university students around the world to be able to compete, to build a foiling moth, out of recycled materials. And that really is starting to get competition in sport, in the sport of sailing, to challenge the convention. How we don't have to use brand new carbon all the time. We can actually think about ways of being able to recycle and reuse and reduce.
Sumoth, Gordon Smith is saying, is a brilliant program. Peter Stevenson down in Sydney, Lake Garda for me is sailing heaven. I couldn't agree more. I think we all love Garda. Optie's kids in one hand on the tiller, the other with a baler and the main sheet in their teeth. Yeah, that's not so good, Alan Long says. Gordon Smith, they're back and forth. look at the sea state, little legends, Mark Husted. Yeah, Mark, who's in Sweden, of course, from Oz originally. Update from Bill Wingrove, Gordon Smith. Berenson had 3 penalties and was black flagged. 2 great races so far. And what's the score line on that one, gang? This is again down at Berenson. Williams is up 2-1 last, we think. That's what Gordon Smith was saying up further up in the comments. Monica Diaz, what a very special venue Garda is. Absolutely top. Stingray's wanting to know, and I'm sure that Bill Wingrove will answer this if he hasn't already. How did the Optimus class get named? Do you know, Andrew? Julia, do you know? The Optimus Club in, I think, Tampa, Florida, someplace in Florida. There's an Optimus Club that caused this boat to be designed. It could be built because it's hard chine, square sided. It could be built in a garage for cheap with just using plywood from the local lumber store. And back in the, tell me what, 30s, 40s, 50s maybe. And it was an Optimus Club. Do you have the Optimus in the UK? Yeah, so it was in one of the Optimus clubs, I think in Florida. Bill Wingrove or somebody on here will have already replied to that. And just like the DN.
Some story for you, if you like.
Go, please.
Some years ago, we were in Oman, in Muscat, for the Extreme Sailing Series, I think it was, and a certain Sir Ben Ainslie, who had actually been rather handy and an optimist in his day, before going on to become the world's most successful ever Olympic sailor. For a photo opportunity, he was asked to get into one of the Oman Sail kids optimists. So this young child reluctantly got out and let this old bloke called Ben Ainslie go and climb into it. And Ben went and just a little poodle around the marina, then came back again. And the photo shoot was done, and this child, of course, who had no clue who Ben was, shook his head and then reset the boat up because Ben had changed all the settings on it.
Fritz Mueller, yeah. Optimus Club of Clearwater, Florida, sponsored the design challenge. Clark Mills design around circa 1950. Stingray up in Seattle, who grew up in South Africa, says that Optimus, Dab Chicks, and Fireballs, we built all 3 in our family garage. So easy. Yeah, well, Fireball's another one. And the DN Ice Boat. We had the DN segment on not too long ago, and those boats that was sponsored by the Detroit News, the newspaper.
Too bad we've moved away from that.
Well, yes, but also wood was so difficult to maintain, and the boats leaked in the spring, and you had to repaint them and strip the paint. It was terrible. Dab Chick, a cool boat. I grew up sailing them in the early 60s, most home built and wood. Fritz Miller is saying. There's some other comments. But I go back to the story, if I may, because we told you on Tuesday that the top 2 kids, the top male and the top female, at this huge regatta, I don't know how many countries, 60, 70 countries. I couldn't find the number anywhere. But 1,100 kids, and the top male and top female sailor were both from Ukraine. And there they are. There's the podium, I guess, something, top 5 sailors. On the right is the kid from South Carolina, James Pine, is that his name? Who we told you about also on Tuesday. But the top male and top female from Ukraine, there's the rest of them all up there on the podium. There are the results. I won't try to pronounce the name because Andrew will make fun of me, if not now in a show down the road, for my Ukrainian or Slavic pronunciations. But the kid in the winning the gold, and then also notice that if you look down the list here, James Pine is the American we were telling you about, who was 5th, and everybody in South Carolina very proud of him. Then there's Eric Scheit. Andrew, do you recognize Eric Scheit? Of course, you recognize the last name. And yes, that is Robert's son.
Yeah.
And likewise, you recognize Victor Loof, who was 10th.
It's Freddie's child.
Yeah, it's Freddie's child. And what a great event, what a great class, what a great legacy. And we got to give them full marks for what has been achieved. And these 1,100 sailors, including the aforementioned Eric Scheit, who's now the Scheits are living in Italy, and Victor Loof, of course, whose dad, I don't know if they're living. Do you know, Andrew, if they're living in Sweden or in Italy? So the kids are there. And the Ukrainians did this beautiful job, but now what do the kids do? Can they go? They obviously can't go back to Ukraine, or they would be, they can't. They don't want to go back there. So guess what? A GoFundMe has been set up, help the Zatoka Ukrainian Opti sailing team to continue. They were training in Valencia, Spain, and our friend Luca was helping that as well as others. So you got to give the Ukrainians full marks, as John Emmett with 2 T's is saying. And I just think we all should support this as best we can. There is a GoFundMe campaign for this team. And guess who established it? This lady. Do you know who that is?
No.
Andrew, shaking his head.
No.
That is Gintari, I guess. That's how you pronounce it, Gintari. And I won't try to pronounce her Lithuanian name. Shite, that's Robert's wife, who herself was an Olympic medalist. Emmett would know her. She was in fact, she won her medal, I think, in the same year that Lily won hers, one of hers. So she has started this GoFundMe. Apparently, she's quite a mover and shaker. Yep, Pedro Foiling Sailor knows her as well from the laser class. Freddie Loof lives in Norway, Mark Husted is saying. But bravo Zulu to Gintari. I'm a sailor and I live in Italy. Yesterday, our sailing club welcomed the Ukrainian sailing team, and now they are getting ready for the centenary regatta. Circolo Vela Torbale is helping them with the housing and the club hospitality during this race. Unfortunately, they cannot go back home after it, and their financial support is running out. There is nobody from Ukraine to help them at this moment. There's kids and their coach. I kindly ask sailors, friends, and people who like sport and know how important it is for kids to have their dreams and goals alive. Let's help them today. Little help from you today can change their future for good. My goal is to help these kids continue sailing for the rest of this season, maybe for the rest of their lives as a result of this. All the support will be used for food, gas, and housing of the team during the next months. The team has 8 sailors. I didn't list their names, but she lists them on the GoFundMe site. 8 sailors for now, and kids are trying to cross the border of Ukraine at the moment and will join the coach, Pavlo Dantsev, as they have nowhere else to go. Pavlo would like to help more kids possible to continue sailing and distract them from the disaster happening in their country. Exactly. For now, they have a van and a trailer in their boats. Most kids are from Odessa, which of course is being overrun by the Russians, the Odessa region, and some are from Kyiv. Ginta, Pedro Foiling Sailor, is saying, is also a talented pianist. But what a brilliant thing she's done. This is from Wikipedia. She competed in the Olympic debut series for the women's single-handed dinghy class, what we used to call the laser radial. During the 2008 Summer Olympics in China, she was the only sailor in the Lithuanian 2008 Olympic team. She won the 4th and 5th fleet races in the laser radial, now the Ilka 6, as well as the medal race, the last 10, winning the silver medal. And I think, John Emmett confirmed for me, I think your wife, won in that regatta. During a test event for the Olympics, China held in 2007, so the year before the Beijing Olympics, she met Brazilian sailor Robert Scheidt, a 2-time laser gold medalist who would also win a medal in 2008 in the star class, as you all know. The two started dating and married in October of 2008, with Gintari taking his surname. The couple live in Italy with their 2 children. Scheidt was chosen as the Lithuanian flag bearer during the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio. So
what a life.
I just thought it was a great story, and bravo Zulu to her. They have raised, as of when I took this screen grab earlier this morning, they've raised north of 26,000 euros with a goal. Their goal had been 15,000 euros. So bravo Zulu to them, and I think they can probably use, and I assume she will use it responsibly indeed. And bravo Zulu to her and to everyone else helping. GoFund.me. You just Google GoFund and say Ukrainian Optimist Team. You don't have to know that code, but that code will take you straight to the page. Andrew, comments? Julia, comments?
Oh, brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great when other nations support a nation in crisis like that, and allowing those young people to be able to keep on going is great. So yeah, all applause to her.
Julia?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep thinking of those. We've talked about that a lot, but those kids are among another whole generation that have been hard done to, and anything we can do to help that would
Absolutely.
be good.
I think we should send them. I'll send them a couple bucks after the show, Julia, on that GoFundMe. Emmett John is reminding us that Lily was bronze in 08. Anna won. Yeah, Anna Tunnicliffe from the U.S. here was gold, and is now coaching the USA Ilka 6 team, which is very good. She's also one of the most physically fit sailors I've ever met, male, female, or otherwise. Julie Ahrens, perhaps this is the moment to thank Andrew Pindar for his support of women in our sport.
Absolutely.
Andrew, thank you very much for all that you have done and are continuing to do. What's on your horizon with women in our sport?
Well, we've been involved with supporting women from before it became trendy to do it, I think.
Yes.
And I've been blessed by having some incredible female sailors sail under our Arctic Tern logo. So that got me involved in looking at how to help support the development of women in sailing. So I'm on the board, as is Luca Rizzossi, currently two token men on a board of women in the Magenta Project. The Magenta Project's going through some development in its own right at the minute, which there's more to be told about that in due course, and would love the opportunity to explain what's going on with Magenta. But what we're seeing, of course, is that many aspects of sailing are realizing that now is a great opportunity for them to give equal opportunity to women. And one of the things that Luca has been doing with creating the new World Sailing Special Event Status Foiling Week World Series is that starts off as a gender equal event right from the get-go. So whereas other aspects of sailing are perhaps struggling some more than others to see how to bring women into the piece, that event is setting off from the start with gender equality and so I'm just delighted when we're able to do that within the sport. And of course, the development of foiling and looking at the new opportunities in sailing means that the question can be asked in a different way, and it does encourage more women to participate. And the more, of course, that participate, the more opportunities then are created because the women get better and better. They are competing directly with the guys, which is what they want to do. They don't want to be shunted off. Mainly, they don't want to be shunted off into some other little park and be treated as though they're children. They want to be able to compete head to head with the guys.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And as Paul Henderson and others have said on this show many times, the more women that are involved in the sport, the more men, especially young men, will be involved in the sport for the obvious reasons. And we want everybody to participate and have the right and the opportunity to participate.
Yep.
And I think our sport is, as we've all said many times on here, is uniquely situated where you can have an open sailing, you can have women's only sailing, you have men only sailing, juniors, but just everybody sails together, and that's the way it normally works, and that's the way the sport, I think, prospers. Big boat sailing particularly. David Bray is watching. Brett Grippenstraw, there's a new name. I hope I pronounced that right, Brett. Welcome to you. Several other comments. Are you involved with Pip Hare?
No, I'm not, other than being one of her fans. So I was one of the people that followed her around the world and admired her whole last Vendée campaign. The one that earned her the right with that last-minute sponsorship with Medallia, I think it's called, to then come again and to buy a foiling boat and to then get that into refit and to then be able to then go into the next Vendée. So she's earned the right to be there, and I think she's gathered a great following.
Well, go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, just to note that Emmett has put the URL for the GoFundMe up so you can look at it.
Good.
And the Royal Danish Yacht Club, according to Gordon Smith, is offering free membership facilities, boats, and coaching to Ukrainian refugees.
Nice. It's a great club, the Royal Danish. Gordon's been teeing me up to. In fact, we have a lot of friends at the Royal Danish, and we're going to talk with a senior serious person there soon. One can only hope. Anything else before I move? I'm going to do a quick. We got to get to Andrew's wine cellar. I mean, that's the purpose of this show. This is a sailing show, or this is a booze show with a wino show with a sailing habit. I do want to go to Congressional Cup, get the latest because they are racing down there. The semifinals today. Ian Williams, who you are quite close to, and you've sponsored him over the years. He's competing in the 57th Congressional Cup. This time with support from another FOSI. From John Sangmeister and Gladstone's Restaurant, but Taylor and Ian, Johnny Berenson from Sweden, and Chris Poole, who's an American, have advanced to the semifinal stage in the 57th Congressional Cup after a dicey day of sailing in winds grazing the top range of the Cat 37 fleet. It was breezy yesterday. 10 of the world's top-ranked match racing teams battled 20 knots. Why can't we race in 20-knot winds? Why is that the top of the range? I mean, bloody hell. Bunch of wussies.
Yeah.
I know they're worried about breaking the boats.
Those sails don't reef us all, so but you're all or nothing.
Yeah, you're right. We got to come on. Battle. I mean, it's just unusual to have that much breeze this time of year in Long Beach, but they're saving the boats. Got SOB. Battle 20 knots of wind and bloodthirsty rivals for who writes this stuff for a chance at the Crimson Blazer at the Long Beach Yacht Club in this 5-day series. Some great photos. Ian, I think these are from Ian, forgetting his last name. It's in the credits. None of the qualifiers are strangers to the Congressional Cup Elite Pass winners. Canfield, Williams, Berenson each already have in their closets an iconic Crimson Blazer, yacht racing's equivalent to the Masters green jacket, Masters golf tournament. And Poole, who qualified for the semis in 2021, has tasted blood. Concluding races tomorrow and Saturday, meaning today, Friday, and tomorrow, Saturday, will prove to be thrilling for competitors and spectators as well. As they watch from the Belmont Veterans Memorial Pier, you will have heard about that pier before. There is a shot from beneath it yesterday, Thursday, during the second round robins. They do two full round robins, and then the top 4 teams advance. And if you're wondering about that pier, that has been, at least in the last, 15, 20 years. We used to race Congressional Cup off the breakwater, but they go down now to this pier, and that will be the venue for the 2028 Olympics. And they're redoing the pier to some degree. John Sangmeister's told us about it, and the mayor was out there the other day doing some kind of a ribbon cutting for what they're now calling the Congressional Cup Stadium. Right off the end of that pier, as you saw in the previous photo, the 2028 Olympics at the Belmont Veterans Memorial Pier. The boat sailing in last night in a bit of a parade. Beautiful Long Beach, California, pretty much year-round, really nice sailing. Taylor came out of the rounds robin at the top, Ian second, Johnny third, Chris Poole fourth, and then Jeppe Borsch and Emil Kiar, whom we were telling you about on Tuesday, slipped to fifth and sixth. Harry Price, who's been on the show, another FOSI, his parents are great people, seventh. Dave Hood, who's an American Long Beach guy. I think he's Long Beach. And then Nick E.J., another FOSI, terrific young sailor, slipped to ninth, and Pearson Potts from Southern Yacht Club and New York Yacht Club 10th. And there are the semifinal pairings. What's going on in those semifinal pairings? Anybody keeping an eye on that for us, let us know. Racing, Ed Worley is saying, has been close and good match racing. Keelboats should be able to compete in the 20s. Yeah, again, James Bland, they're trying to save those borrowed boats. Emmett saying he's watched a lot of it live. Yeah, Crutonic text. Congressional Cup must be having lunch. No update on the Canfield pairing. Okay, well, we'll keep you apprised of that via our FOSI. Thank you for that. They started racing today at 11:30. The finals are tomorrow, and a petit finale as well for... Well, you speak French. Both of you speak French. I don't speak French. Did I pronounce that okay, Andrew? Petit finale?
C'est pas mal.
Huh?
C'est pas mal.
What did he say?
Very badly.
Very badly. Well, I didn't say I had to pronounce.
Not bad.
Oh, not bad.
Oh, not bad.
You're too kind. So that's what's going on at Con Cup, and we will skip now the America's Cup news. We've got a couple of videos we can play, but really, I'm thirsty to see your wine cellar, Andrew, if this is a good time.
Yeah, I'll have to pick up my bed and walk, as it were. So I'll unplug a few things and walk with laptop. So,
Stingray's asked if Jeffrey's involved with the broadcast.
Jeffrey's commentating, or he was, and doing a terrific job.
Good.
With Tucker Thompson, I know Andy Rose was there too.
Great.
As we watch our guest, if you're just joining us at an hour and a half in, this is the promised retour, not detour, the retour of Andrew's celebrated wine cellar in Scarborough in the UK. He gave us a tour before, but he's added some new items. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Hope the video works.
Here we go.
I know Andrew
We're going
tested
down.
this.
What
We're
fun.
going down.
I'm
See if the
going.
Wi-Fi stayed. The last time I did a little film for you. So, can we see?
Yep.
Yep.
Works great. That's quite a long row of bottles down there. You rival Bill Koch.
Well, there's the spirits are up here. The important things like the King's ginger, and we've got some gins and whiskies and stuff and rums up here. But then the wine. Let's see if I can do this. Is that working? There you go.
Yep.
Don't trip and fall. We don't have any liability insurance.
There's the wine.
Mm-hmm.
And the champagne that I'm recommending is this one here.
This is the one you just brought back?
Yeah, champagne. It's the Comtesse La Fonde. So the variety of different champagnes, and we've got reds and rosés and the normal sort of stuff you get in anybody's wine cellar. But it's quite a decent thing out of this house is to have the cellar. So
Stingray wants to know what's the temp and the humidity down there.
I've got no idea what the humidity is. It's whatever God gives us, and the temperature. It remains cool all year round, and it's a very good place for the tortoise to hibernate.
Now back up there on the garage shelf, Peter Taylor wants to know: is there any tequila that we could? If we come, we need tequila and soda. I mean, we'll drink whatever you give us, but.
Well, there's aquavit on here.
Lost you.
Yeah, he'll come back. It's hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're back.
Over there, Alborg. Got some Alborg, especially for Gordon. And then we've got some whiskies just on here. So anyway, there you go.
Well,
I think people
a
probably
couple
know.
questions. One about Alistair Murray is asking if you have a Pensfold Grange Hermitage. I've actually drank
No,
some.
I don't.
Yes.
I
I
have
don't.
drunk.
If he wants to post me some, that would be very kind of him.
How about the grandfather clock? There's questions about the grandfather clock.
Well, it's too tall for the shelf. You can sing the song if you like.
My grandfather's clock
is
is
too
too
tall
tall
for
for
the
the shelf.
So it sits on the floor.
So it sits on the floor by itself, right? Something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
It stops never to go again when the old man died.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It stops short, never to go again. I have not even thought of this song,
I
let
haven't
alone
either.
sung it, as you can tell.
I know.
Since
Yeah.
gosh, Agavit is essential. Gordon Smith. Oh, now we're losing. He's back up in his mainland, and we're up in his main territory. Are you coming back? Reconnecting. There's a poor network connection. You've got no Shetland gin. Graham Sweeney wants to know. Mezcal. The edge of the door to the wine cellar needs a bit of paint. Oh, come on, Peter Stevens. There, he's back. It reconnected.
Yeah.
Wow, impressive, Monica Diaz is saying. Too much storage, not enough drinking, James Bland is saying. Well,
That's a great picture.
let's see if we get the Wi-Fi. It's a little bit dodgy there. See if it comes back. Clark Chapin asking, is there any gin or vodka? It has a negligible glycemic index as well. No reason for insistence on tequila. Yeah, well, maybe. See if it reconnects. There, Andrew, it's trying to reconnect. We got to get Andrew a better internet. There it's coming. Now he's back. I think you're good. I think you're good. Maybe not.
Almost.
It's
There
trying.
you go. That should be good.
There it is. Okay, well
I guess
done.
it flipped from 1.5.
Julie Aarons is saying she has a single bottle of Penfold Grange. We had Jimmy Spithill was somehow being sponsored by Penfold, the Australian, high-end Australian. And Jimmy and I did a promotion or two with and for them, I think at Eastern Yacht Club or Corinthian Yacht Club in Marblehead.
The Penfold Grange owner is a sailor.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if Alistair Murray probably knows him in that case. No wonder he's promoting. Okay, shall we move back to the news? Wrap this up? Can you stay? So what time is it there? And UT 21, so it's 22:35. I hope you have a glass there.
Well, I might have one after we're done. But I'm home alone. My wife has gone scuba diving on the other side of the country, so she was just checking when she called earlier on. She was just checking in that she got there safely.
Stingray saying, I'm guessing trips to the wine cellar frequently result in disconnection, not discombobulation. Okay, I'll go back to the slides and we'll wrap this one up. We do have a little bit of AC news. Ben Ainsley has re-signed Goobs, a nice video. It's a brief one. Have a look.
Goobs is a huge natural talent. He has a great feel for a boat. He's a really good guy under pressure in particular. He's just the same whether you're racing for a win or a super critical race in a series to any other race. He's unflappable, really. I really enjoy sailing alongside him closely in that trimming-helming relationship. And he's an incredibly nice guy. You need a few of those in your team, and he's a guy that gets on with the job day in, day out. He's putting in 100%, doing his best for the team.
So, Andrew, what do you think of Ian and Sir Ben? What do you think of their chances this time around?
Better than they were last time. Yeah, well, but I think that they were fair, and I think that there was perhaps a little bit too much PR hype about bringing the cup home in the first one. I thought it was unrealistic. I think that Ben, when he was saying it with his own words rather than a PR machine, was probably saying, come on, it's going to take at least one cycle for us to get our ducks in a row with this and to understand what we need to do to be able to win a cup. So I think that it got a little bit overhyped on the PR side to say it was going to come home in one go. There's every chance that they could do it this time. They've certainly got the funding, they've got the skill sets within the sailors, and if they've made the right call, if Martin gets the design calls on it, then yep, they could do it very well.
You care to rank the challengers as you see them at this point?
No, I don't. I think it would be, well, you know, it's a bit like saying who's going to win on a Saturday afternoon in football. You know, you put in your favourites because you do, but I don't think that I would get any guess right. I think that it's exciting to have the potential of more teams. I think that as the rule stabilizes into the version 2 of these boats, we'll see some real honing of the performance, but it's going to be close. It's going to be really close.
Well, I wonder if I should launch, Julia, my first list of cup, the EHMAN ranking list, or should I wait?
At your own treachery.
One hears that INEOS is going to focus heavily on the hydrogen support vehicle's performance characteristics. Stingray always comes up with the damnedest things. Emmett thinks the ducks are starting to line up. Emmett, I know, is very high, but you guys are Brits. And you should be supportive of the Brits, just like Gladwell thinks that the Kiwis are going to win. If right now, you know, I'll tell you who I think is going to win, and I'll see if my view changes. But right now, knowing him and knowing how good he's been in the past, how resourceful he is, how much money he's got, how talented his Alinghi non-America's Cup teams have been in the other events that they've been competing in, the various catamaran races and so on, events. Ed Worley is with me. Julie Aarons is probably not with me. She's a big fan of Team New Zealand, but I agree with Ed Worley. I think Ed Worley is agreeing that I would not bet against Alinghi at this point. And I think Sir Ben is good. I think I agree with John Emmett that their ducks are lining up. But if I had to go out on a limb today and rank the teams, including Team New Zealand, I would say number 1 is Alinghi. Number 2 is Team New Zealand. Probably number 3 is Sir Ben. And we'll see how American Magic and how Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli pan out. Anybody care to argue with that?
Predict away.
Julia?
No, I'm not ready to do that.
And I'm going to sit completely on the fence.
Okay. Julie Aaron saying time will tell. Clark Chapin, nobody will remember at the end of this cup cycle what you predicted at this early stage. Predict away.
Oh, somebody will.
Well, I do. I think that Alinghi's going to be tough. What if the Brits turn? Well, we'll see. I hope you're right, Andrew. I hope the Brits are really strong, and I hope this next event is better than ever. But I do think Alinghi is underrated by most of the other journos. Having fought armed hand-to-hand combat with Ernesto Bertarelli, and Brad Butterworth is still one of the smartest people in the sport, and I suspect they are going to surprise a lot of people. Whether they win or not, right now I wouldn't bet against them. I think they're going to be tough. This hydrogen boat that was just mentioned, should we go talk about that? Now, this is a video I just saw. I just got, and it's not from the team. This is the first non-team video that we've seen of this hydrogen boat. I won't say any more than that, but have a look at it and its performance, and then maybe guys like Clark Chapin and some of you other petrol heads will have comments as well. This is courtesy of our friend down there, Airflow New Zealand, who took this video a couple days ago. This is the Toyota fuel cell. Presumably, they're not at full capability. They're still in the testing phase. It's been 3 weeks, I think, since they launched. The Cortina class, Clark Chapin. The speed is face-melting and mind-blowing. Not, I think Stingray has said. Ted Ryman saying it's ugly. Yeah, I was surprised in that video, and again, presumably they're testing, and they don't have it at full throttle yet. But it doesn't look, Peter Taylor, it doesn't look to be particularly fast, does it? If your own child, you wouldn't kiss it, Gordon Smith is saying.
If it was your own
child.
If
it was your own child. Yes, thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
I feel underwhelmed. I agree, John Emmett. That was my reaction when I saw it. I thought, man, I was expecting this thing to be, it doesn't look like it's going much faster than 15, 18 knots. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew? Looks like an old Toyota, John Mangino is saying. Andrew, you probably keep your powder dry. I know you're very circumspect.
I think it sounds as though it's very much a test bed type of scenario. So I don't think you can read anything into it until it's really been developed. It looks like it's a rush to get onto the water, and it's a development phase thing. So it could yet fly.
Yep. Okay. As I said, you could be the next. You're too young to remember U Thant, who was one of the early Secretary Generals of the UN, right?
Yeah.
What a diplomat. Have you talked to Bojo lately? Maybe you could take over as your foreign minister.
Yes.
No, we don't want to lose you from the sport, Andrew. Please don't do that. Okay, let's go to correct or croutonic, because we do have one question for everybody. Apropos the war, apropos the Russians and the Belarusians, so we're going to ask, is it correct or croutonic what's going on with these Russian boats or former Russian boats? This, of course, is the celebrated 100-footer Comanche, which was an American boat, which became an Australian boat, which was reported to have been sold. Andrew, you probably know better than most of us, sold to a Russian. And now it's maybe back in Australian hands, but this was the World Sailing release of a few days ago following their March 1 decision. I like it when they talk in the third person about themselves. Their March 1 decision to suspend the participation of all Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials from World Sailing events. The sport's international governing body has now notified its intention to extend those bans. All Russian or Belarusian members of committees, it should be and, not or, and Belarusian members of committees, commissions, working parties, the council, and any other relevant body of world sailing are to be temporarily suspended. Today's official announcement, as I said this a couple days ago, earlier this week, from the board, also clarifies their position in relation to participation as it relates to boats. World Sailing now states that their proposed ban, quote, excludes the participation of any boat owned or effectively controlled or managed by a Russian or Belarusian individual or entity, unquote. No doubt there are legal hurdles to overcome. This is editorializing now from wherever I grabbed this. Before those extended bans can be endorsed at the next full meeting of the World Sailing Board in Abu Dhabi in late May. It could involve agreeing to changes in the World Sailing Regulations and Constitution. Well, that was interesting. And then a couple days ago, the 20th of this month, Comanche issued this pithy release. Comanche Inc. notes recent untrue and misleading media speculation regarding the yacht's ownership. Comanche is not owned, beneficially or otherwise, obviously written by a lawyer, or effectively controlled or managed by a Russian or Belarusian individual or entity. Comanche supports the recent announcements made by World Sailing. So, is this whole episode of banning Comanche, is this correct or Croutonic? And Gordon Smith is saying it is correct. And is the ban correct, Gordon? I guess I should state that more clearly. Let's assume that Comanche is being banned because it was rumored to have been owned by a Russian. Is that correct now, given this statement? Would you, Andrew, would you buy this statement? You probably know a lot more about this than we do.
I think I know more than I'm allowed to even talk about, so I'm afraid I can't say anything, Tom.
Ted Ryman says it's correct. They must be treated like kryptonite until Russia stops their nonsense. Stingray says World Sailing likely gets a bunch of support from whoever owns Comanche, and so they are denying its true ownership. It's correct to ban, Rick Hayes says. See, I haven't asked Andrew, and I won't ask Andrew. Julie, do you have a view on this?
No, I don't know enough about it.
Well, see, that's my problem. As I've said on this show, and I know we, having gone through the boycott of the 2000, that had zero impact on international affairs and getting the Russians out of Afghanistan and on and on and on and on. John Emmett is saying it's correct if it's owned by a Russian, but that is a very important if. How will you ever know, John Emmett, and I'm not disagreeing with John, or anyone else?
Yeah, just don't know.
How would you ever know? Julie, I got to read. I can do this in the control room now. Watch. Get you over there. Centered up there.
Thank you.
I wish I had a remote control for Pindar. He's done a pretty good job at keeping himself.
He's done a very good job.
He's very well centered as a person and on camera.
Absolutely.
Andrew, do you want to just make any general comments, and then I'm going to make a general comment about this?
No, I'm sure that, like the majority of the world, that I'm appalled by what's going on, and you can only feel for the poor people of the Ukraine. The extreme times and probably extreme measures needed. I don't know about the circumstances with any particular boat's ownership, but sometimes certainly we have seen that people who come from a certain part of the world, it's guilt by some kind of association, which isn't necessarily the correct one. So I think we've got to be very careful not to jump to conclusions.
And I agree. And I feel sorry for all the guys that have been sailing in Comanche who've lost their livelihood. I feel sorry for the IMA and others that are running regattas that would love to have Comanche and some of these other boats sailing in them. And we know how easy it is to transfer effective control, wink, wink, from one corporation to another, from one entity to another. And we'll never know for sure who beneficially owns Comanche or did own Comanche unless the owner, him or herself, puts the hand up, right, and says, it's me. So I'm a big believer in local control. And if the IMA says, if the other Andrew, our other big FOSI friend, Andrew McIrvin,
Yeah.
with whom I texted this morning, not about this, says, you know, we've looked into this, we, the IMA, the International Maxi Association, and we think this boat is not beneficially owned at present by a Russian oligarch or by a Belarusian person. And they can sail. And Mitch Booth can go drive it. He's the skipper, the Australian skipper, and he's got other Belarusian, non-Russian people on the boat. I'm all in favor of it. Am I wrong? Andrew's not going to say. He's got his lips zipped.
Pursed.
So zipped. He has zipped his lips. Mine are dry. Andrew, any other last minute? I mean, can't the local organizing authority, can't the local committee make up their mind and decide? We don't want world sailing ruling that Comanche can't race.
Or can.
Exactly, Julia. Are you willing to comment at least to that extent, that it ought to be up to the class association, the IMA, the local organizing committee?
Well, I didn't. What I just read there, I didn't see that they were making a particular attribution to any boat. They were talking about the generalization, weren't they? And as to who owns what boat and who is a true owner, beneficial owner, is it through a shadow company or anything else? I'll go back to my previous words, but I think that we should be very careful to not assume that somebody is Russian or Belarusian, or I think we should allow people to present what their nationality is and what their ownership status is. And I know in my own circumstances of boats that we have through work, sometimes you have somebody else who will be in a sort of a nominal ownership, because it's just the way that the world of yachting and shipping sometimes works. Not trying to hide something, it's just the way that sometimes it's more practical to do something. I don't know in this particular circumstances, but I certainly hope that Mitch Booth and the guys on board are able to get that boat racing again, because it's one hell of a machine.
Okay, enough said on all that. Julia, do you want to add anything, subtract anything?
No. Clark Chapin says, a wise general once said,
yeah,
all military disasters can be summed up in 2 words: too late.
Well, the only one who's been right so far about this war,
John Emmett,
is John Emmett. And he called it, he said almost to the day, and then he's called it right all along. And he's got a lot of friends, and I know you do too, Andrew, and in Central and Eastern Europe. And I feel bad for the sailors on Comanche, and if that boat can be sailed, I love to see boats sailed in our sport asset sale. I hate to see them go to waste. I hate to see Comanche going to waste and the sailors who would normally sail on it. And there are got to be a whole lot of Belarusian and Russian sailors who, like the guy who just quit, who was the head of the number 2 of the CEO, the oligarch, whatever he was, that quit the number 2 oil company in Russia. And a lot of these sailors, I'm sure, would say, I have no use for Russia, and it's not their fault that Putin is a crouton. That's too light a word for crouton. Crouton. Not Putin, crouton. I mean, the guy's a complete, obviously, megalomaniac warlord. And I think there's got to be a lot of Russian sailors who ought to be able to sail depending upon the circumstances. And I don't know, Andrew, who else can sort that out except the local organizing authority, committee, club.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, well, we're not going to sort it out on here.
No.
Well, we try, though, and people tune in to see what the opinions and views are. Okay. Important that we can support. More important, can we support the name after the Croutonic Redskins renaming as Washington Redskins, the football team? I hate to see this sport of sailing obstructed for political purposes. I agree, Graham Sweeney. And the Scots would never let that happen, I'm sure. Okay, we'll move on. Everybody's very careful. There's one comment here from John Emmett, but the message inside Russia is this is a holy war, and the special operation has already made it way into the museums about, about fighting the Nazis. Yeah, we see that. And boy, the PR on both sides is pretty astonishing, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, we're to the D block. Andrew's made it this far with us. He's managed not to step in it. He's been very circumspect.
He may get a medal at the end of this.
He deserves a medal for just coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And these are all nice submissions from one of our FOSI. I'll name him after the third cartoon. Sorry, I wasn't trying to summon you. I was just trying to pull up the menu on my phone. Do you have restaurants? We're all of a sudden inundated here. I like this cartoon, Andrew, because all of a sudden here, you go into it. We did this the other night when Alfredo and I went off and the menus are, this was at the Italian place that we go to and been going to for years.
Yes.
Della Rosa.
Yeah.
You can't get a menu anymore. You have to take your phone and point it at a QR code, and then the menu pops up on your phone.
Yeah.
Do you have those over there, Andrew?
Yeah, and I've seen them everywhere I travel around the world, and that's quite a number of different places. The QR codes were always able to do that for you, but it was tended to be some geeky digital restaurateur who went down that path. And then, of course, with COVID, it suited them because you were then not touching a menu, they were passing it on to somebody else. So I could understand why it became prevalent.
I didn't realize that this was a sanitary cleanliness thing. They didn't have to wash all the menus. I didn't know that.
I think if as a restaurateur, I don't have to reprint the dumb menu every day, and you can change at the last minute.
Are you prepared to go to a regatta and shoot your phone at the QR code to get the sailing instructions?
I'm sure somebody.
Yeah. Well, we have QR codes on our sails going back. The way instead of putting .com, if you wanted people to, the early days of QR codes. I used to be in the graphics industry, so perhaps that's meant. But that's what we wanted to do, was we wanted to show big QR codes. So if people wanted to learn about who we were as a sponsor, you'd then put the phone up and you'd take the picture of the QR code and boom, there you were.
Emmett says we've had QR codes for most regattas. Is that for sailing instructions? Until the battery dies just before you order. Ted Ryman is saying. Okay, enough on that one. I just thought that was a cute cartoon. And then there was this one. This is the way I feel. Can't leave her with my parents. Do you want her to turn out like me? We can't leave her with my parents. Do you want her to turn out like me? Okay. I thought that was clever. He took a walk to clear his head. Now there's nothing there. Okay. Thanks, Peter Taylor. Your first one was more popular, I think, than the second and third one. But apropos, I always try to thread these things together. I think this is from New Zealand. I think one of you, maybe, or Australia. Did Greg Phillips, one of you sent this to me, and I lost track of who it was. We cannot sanitize newspaper. Use at your own risk. I thought that they decided that you could not get COVID from touching things.
They had.
Haven't they long since decided that? We're going to need Mick Irvin back on here to update us.
Yes.
Isn't that true, Andrew?
Well, a lot of the early needs to wash everything down, wash your vegetables, wash your plastic bags you were going to the supermarket with, or whatever else, you reuse, have your own bags. A lot of those things seem to have gone out the window.
Exactly.
And certainly in the UK, most people are back to not wearing any masks and just doing this we used to.
Didn't your social distancing rules go away here this week? Did they get dropped, or are they about to?
No, not in Yorkshire, because we always try and keep a safe distance from foreigners.
Well, as you know, our wearing it, it's being appealed. Apparently, one of the courts ordered that the masking mandate was not constitutional because it wasn't passed by a legislative body. Okay, enough of all that. Thank you, Peter Taylor. That gets us to the finish line. And the promised, or we had talked about it on Tuesday, and Andrew, I want to get your view on this too, because I know you're a strong supporter of it, but we are told, in fact, I did this one here a week ago, that the Netherlands is going to host a U25 para sailing world championship, and a youth, in effect, a junior, in effect, Youth Parasailing World Championship right after the traditional youth worlds in the Netherlands. And the deal, I understand, has still not been signed. So we've got a couple people who are really cool at World Sailing and outside of World Sailing, including Dan Jaspers at RS Sailing, who are keeping us posted. And we hope now, we're going to postpone this from Tuesday and do it hopefully next Friday. Anything to add to that, Andrew?
No, I know that Dan Jaspers and John Partridge at RS have been putting a lot of work into this with Massimo Diggi at World Sailing. So hopefully that's going to come off, because it should be there. And what a great way to really reinforce the importance of what we're trying to do with getting sailing back into the Paralympics, everything that's going on for Los Angeles and so on. So, we need this sort of thing to happen to be able to show the real development and commitment.
Absolutely. So we couldn't agree more, and I'm looking forward to, excited to have Dan on the show. And that will not be Tuesday, but hopefully it will be next Friday, a week from today. Julia, or we could ask Andrew to do this. Andrew, you're the co-host today. You can do this.
Yes.
Well, importantly, we'd like you to make sure that you like, follow, and share.
Wow. Dulcet tones indeed.
Oh, yes.
Very well done. Thank you. And of course, comments are welcome too, even in replay. And we're getting a lot of very nice comments about Andrew. What a star. Thanks, Tom, Julie, Andrew. Great guest. The Penfolds Grange is in the mail, Alistair Murray. Just saying. And it won't be long before it's Sir Andrew Pindar. Ryman is saying, thanks, Ted. Wonderful. Gordon Smith, wonderful to have one of the Andrews on the show again. Excellent show. Thank you, Andrew, Julie. Yep, we said that one, Alan Long. And subscribe on YouTube. That's right. John Emmett, subscribe. And also, if you'll support us on Patreon, Sailing Illustrated appreciates that very much. If you give us a few bucks a month, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We always have credits to give to those who gave us video. Let us use their video and images and audio. Andrew, final comment to you.
No, I'm hoping to get invited back again in the coming weeks. We've got some developments that we're involved in the Middle East, which I'm sure will be of interest to you, Tom, and especially to the world of sailing. So hopefully I'll be able to tell you more about that in due course, and look forward to a return invite.
Likewise. We appreciate your coming on. And Julia, anything?
No, but someday I'll have a conversation with him about York and York, Pennsylvania, where my family started in 1752.
Oh wow!
And York County and York School and lots of stuff that's there. It'll be fun to see. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you again. We'll see you all on Tuesday, we hope. In the meantime, have a great rest of your weekend. Those of you already have started it, and the rest of us will. We'll sail fast, sail safe, sail hard. He's shaking his head, and have fun. Thank you all. See you Tuesday.